You've felt it before, that strange sensation when time seems to slow, when seconds stretch into eternities, when the present moment becomes so vivid it feels like you're seeing reality for the first time. But you've never understood what was really happening. You've never realized that in those moments, time wasn't slowing down for you. You were finally catching up to time. Time doesn't flow the way you think it does. It doesn't move forward like a river carrying you toward some distant ocean of the future. Time is a dimension, a landscape you move through, and most of your life you've been walking through it blind, feeling your way forward with trembling hands, never seeing the vast topography of moments that surround you. But there are precious, terrifying moments when the blindfold slips, when you glimpse the true architecture of temporal existence. And what you see is this: time has been watching you your entire life, cataloging every breath, every heartbeat, every thought that has ever passed through your consciousness. Time knows you better than you know yourself, and time is waiting for you to die. This isn't metaphor, this isn't poetry. This is the cold, mathematical truth hidden in the equations of relativity and quantum mechanics. In the block universe model of space-time, all moments past, present, and future exist simultaneously. Your birth, your death, every moment in between, they're all equally real, equally present, spread out across the fourth dimension like frames in an infinite film strip. From time's perspective, you are not a being who will die. You are a being who has always been dying, who is dying, who has already died. Your death is not a future event, it's a coordinate in space-time, as fixed and real as your birth, as immutable as the laws of physics themselves. But here's what's unsettling about this eternal perspective. Time doesn't experience your life the way you do. While you move through moments sequentially, one after another, time sees all your moments at once. It sees the child you were, the adult you are, the elder you will become, all existing simultaneously in the vast four-dimensional sculpture of your existence. And in that eternal view, something strange happens. The closer you get to death, the more vivid you become to time itself. As entropy increases, as your biological systems begin to break down, as the quantum coherence that holds your consciousness together starts to decay, you begin to emit a kind of temporal radiation as signature that makes you visible to time in ways you never were before. It's as if your entire life has been a whisper, and death is the moment when time finally learns to listen. Consider the quantum mechanics of consciousness collapse. Every moment of awareness involves the collapse of quantum wave functions, the crystallization of infinite possibilities into a single, observed reality. But this process isn't random. It's guided by something deeper, something that quantum physicists call the observer effect, but that might be better understood as the universe's way of paying attention to itself. And what the universe pays attention to, time remembers. Throughout your life, you've been creating temporal memories, not just in your own mind, but in the fabric of space-time itself. Every decision you've made, every path you've chosen, every moment of consciousness you've experienced has left an imprint on the quantum foam of reality. These aren't just memories in the conventional sense. They're informational structures, encoded in the very geometry of space-time, permanent records of your existence that will persist long after your biological death. But here's the paradox. These temporal memories are invisible to you while you're alive. The same quantum processes that create them also shield them from your conscious awareness. It's only as you approach death, as your neural networks begin to break down, as the boundaries between your individual consciousness and the universal quantum field begin to blur, that you start to access these deeper memories. This is why near-death experiences often involve a life review, a panoramic vision of your entire existence seen from a perspective outside of time. It's not a metaphysical phenomenon, it's a quantum mechanical one. As consciousness decoherence begins, you temporarily gain access to the temporal records that time has been keeping of your existence. You see your life the way time sees it, not as a sequence of events, but as a single, eternal, multidimensional object existing in the four-dimensional manifold of space-time. And in that vision, you understand something that changes everything. You have never been mortal. You have always been eternal. Death is not the end of your existence. Sits the moment when your existence becomes fully visible to time itself. But this revelation comes with a price. To see yourself from time's perspective is to see yourself as an object rather than a subject, as a pattern rather than a person, as information rather than identity. The you that you've always believed yourself to be, the continuous stream of consciousness, the narrative self, the observer behind your eyes, this you is revealed to be a temporary illusion, a local disturbance in the quantum field that briefly convinced itself it was separate from the universe. And yet, paradoxically, this illusion is the most real thing about you. The fact that the universe can create pockets of organized complexity that believe themselves to be separate, that experience themselves as individual observers, that suffer and love and dream and fear, this is the most miraculous thing time has ever witnessed. This is why time remembers you at the moment of death. Not because you're becoming more real, but because you're becoming more impossible. In a universe governed by entropy, by the tendency toward maximum disorder, the fact that you existed at all, that consciousness can emerge from quantum chaos, that meaning can crystallize from meaninglessness, that love can arise from the random motion of particles. This is the ultimate paradox, and time, patient time, eternal time, has been waiting billions of years to witness this paradox resolve itself. Your death is not the end of your story. It's the moment when time finally understands what your story has always been about. The moment you die is when time finally remembers you. But perhaps, in some deeper sense, the moment you were born was when time finally remembered itself. And everything in between this brief, impossible flowering of consciousness in a universe that shouldn't be able to support, if this is time's way of experiencing wonder at its own existence. In the quantum foam of space-time, where virtual particles pop in and out of existence, where the observer effect collapses infinite possibilities into singular realities, where consciousness and cosmos dance in recursive feedback loops of mutual creation. In this strange, beautiful, terrifying quantum universe, death is not an ending but a recognition. A moment when time looks at the impossible fact of your existence and whispers, "I remember you. I have always remembered you. And I will remember you long after memory itself has forgotten how to remember." What does it mean to be remembered? By time itself. What does it mean to discover that your mortality was always an illusion? That your consciousness was always a temporary crystallization of eternal patterns? That your death was always a homecoming to the timeless awareness that you never really left? You looked in the mirror this morning and saw yourself, or so you thought. But the photons bouncing off your reflection left your face 8 minutes ago, when you were subtly different, when the atoms in your skin were arranged in configurations that no longer exist, when your thoughts were shaped by neural patterns that have since reorganized themselves in ways both magnificent and tragic. The light that carries your image to your own eyes is always out of date, always showing you who you were, never who you are. And this temporal displacement isn't just a curiosity of physics, it's a profound statement about the nature of identity itself. You are not the person that light thinks you are. You are not even the person you think you are. You are someone else entirely. Someone who exists in the impossible space between the person you were and the person you're becoming. Someone whose identity is always in flux, always temporal, always just slightly out of phase with the reality that surrounds you. But here's what's truly unsettling. Yesterday's light doesn't just carry images of who you were. It carries information about versions of yourself that never existed. In the quantum mechanical description of photon behavior, each ray of light exists in superposition, simultaneously taking every possible path between its source and destination. The moment it's observed, this means that the light reflecting off your face yesterday morning was simultaneously reflecting off infinite versions of your face. Versions where you smiled instead of frowned. Versions where you wore different clothes, made different choices, lived different lives. All of these possibilities traveled together through space, quantum entangled in ways that make them more connected than separate, more unified than distinct. And when that light reaches your eyes today, when the wave function collapses and you see yourself in the mirror, you're not just seeing who you were. You're seeing the ghostly superposition of everyone you could have been, collapsed into a single, observed reality by the act of looking itself. This is why mirrors feel strange sometimes, why photographs of yourself can seem like they're showing you, a stranger, why your reflection occasionally seems to lag behind your movements, as if the person in the mirror is trying to catch up to the person you've become. The light carrying your image is always chasing you, rough time, always trying to catch up to the constantly changing pattern of matter and energy that you mistake for a stable self. And in that eternal chase, in that perpetual temporal displacement, something profound is revealed. Identity is not a thing but a process, not a noun but a verb, not a state but a transformation. Consider the implications of this for memory, for consciousness, for the story you tell yourself about who you are. Every memory you have is encoded in neural patterns that are constantly changing, constantly being rewritten by the act of remembering itself. The you who experienced your first kiss, your first heartbreak, your first moment of existential terror, that person no longer exists, except as information patterns in your current brain. But even those patterns are unreliable. Neuroscience has shown us that memory is not recording but reconstruction. Every time you remember something, you're not accessing a stored failure, rebuilding the memory from fragments, filling in gaps with current beliefs and emotions, creating a new version of the past that never quite matches the original experience. This means that the person you think you are, the continuous narrative self, the protagonist of your own stories, actually a constantly changing fiction. A story your brain tells itself about patterns that no longer exist, experiences that have been transformed by the act of remembering them, a past that has always been rewritten by the present moment of recollection. And yesterday's light, carrying images of who you were, is part of this vast temporal fiction. The photons that left your face 8 minutes ago are not just carrying visual information, they're carrying quantum information about your state of consciousness, your emotional configuration, your moment-to-moment experience of being alive. But by the time that light reaches an observer, you've changed. The quantum state that generated those photons has decoherent, collapsed into new configurations, evolved into patterns that would be unrecognizable to the person who originally emitted them. The light is carrying news of someone who no longer exists to observers, who are also no longer the same people they were when the light began its journey. This temporal displacement creates a kind of cosmic loneliness. We are all, fundamentally, alone in time, separated from each other by the speed of light, by the quantum decoherence of consciousness, by the constant flux of identity itself. The person you see when you look at someone else is not who they are. Now it's who they were in the past, filtered through your own constantly changing perceptions, interpreted by a brain that is itself always in the process of becoming something else. And yet, paradoxically, this isolation is also a form of connection. The fact that light carries information about our past selves means that we are all continuously broadcasting our existence to the universe. Every moment of consciousness, every emotional state, every quantum configuration of our being, of it is being encoded in electromagnetic radiation and sent out into the cosmos, somewhere in the universe. Light that left your face years ago is still traveling, still carrying information about who you were, still broadcasting your existence. Two distant observers who may never know they're seeing you. In this sense, you are not just a local phenomenon. You are a distributed pattern of information spreading through space-time at the speed of light. Your past selves are still out there, encoded in electromagnetic radiation, traveling through the void, carrying news of your existence to parts of the universe that will never know your name, but will forever carry traces of your quantum signature. You are not just a person, you are an expanding sphere of information, a growing bubble of consciousness-encoded light that will outlive your biological existence by billions of years. But here's the deepest paradox. While yesterday's light still thinks you are someone else, it may be more accurate about your identity than you are. The light doesn't know about your narrative self, your continuous story, your sense of being a stable person moving through time. It simply carries information about quantum states, about patterns of matter and energy, about the fundamental physical processes that generate the illusion of self-o. From light's perspective, you are not a person but a process, not a being but a becoming, not a self but a pattern of information that temporarily coalesces into configurations complex enough to believe themselves conscious, to experience themselves as separate from the quantum field that generates them. And in that perspective, yesterday's light is carrying the most honest portrait of who you really are, not the story you tell yourself about your identity, but the raw quantum information that generates the experience of being you, the electromagnetic signature of consciousness itself, broadcast into the universe with every photon that bounces off your constantly changing face. Yesterday's light still thinks you were someone else. But perhaps that someone else is who you really are, not the narrative self, not the continuous story, but the quantum process that generates the experience of being a self, the information pattern that temporarily convinces itself it's a person, the cosmic joke that consciousness plays on itself by pretending to be separate from the universe that creates it. In the end, the question isn't whether yesterday's light is wrong about who you are. The question is whether you've ever been right about who you are. And perhaps, in the temporal displacement between photon, emission, and observation, in the quantum superposition of all possible selves, in the constant flux of identity itself, the answer is both yes and no, simultaneously, until the moment of observation collapses the wave function and forces you to choose which version of yourself to believe in. What does it mean to be someone else to your own light? What does it mean to discover that your identity is always out of date, always chasing itself through time, always one step behind the person you're becoming? You've been living with future memories your entire life, not premonitions, not prophecies, not mystical visions, but actual information from tomorrow, next week, next decade, bleeding backward through time into your present moment awareness. The quantum foam of space-time doesn't respect the arrow of time the way your consciousness does. It allows information to leak in both directions, creating strange loops and temporal paradoxes that most people dismiss as imagination, intuition, or coincidence. But you felt it. In moments of déjà vu that feel too precise to be mere pattern recognition. In dreams that seem to preview experiences you haven't had yet. In sudden insights that arrive fully formed, as if downloaded from a future version of yourself who has already solved the problems you're currently struggling with. The future isn't just coming toward you, it's already here, interwoven with the present moment in ways that quantum mechanics predicts, but classical physics cannot explain. Time is not a river flowing in one direction. It's an ocean, and you are a consciousness swimming in temporal currents that move in all directions simultaneously. Consider the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, where decisions made in the future can retroactively determine the behavior of particles in the past, when physicists fire photons through a double-slit apparatus and then decide later whether to measure which slit each photon went through. That future measurement retroactively determines whether the photon behaved as a wave or a particle in the past. This isn't just a laboratory curiosity. It's a fundamental feature of reality. The future is constantly reaching backward through time, influencing the present moment in ways that create the illusion of causality, while actually operating according to principles that transcend linear time. Your consciousness operates in similar temporal loops. Every decision you make is influenced by quantum information from the future consequences of that decision. Not deterministically, the future isn't fixed, but probabilistically, through quantum entanglement between your current brain states and the potential brain states that could emerge from different choices. This is why certain decisions feel right, even when you can't logically explain why. Your future self, the one who has already lived with the consequences of your choices, is constantly sending information backward through quantum channels that your conscious mind interprets as intuition, gut feelings, or sudden insights. But here's where it gets strange. The future that's leaking into your present isn't necessarily the future that will actually happen. Quantum mechanics allows for multiple futures to exist simultaneously in superposition, each one sending different information backward through time. Your consciousness exists at the intersection of these temporal streams, experiencing them as conflicting impulses, contradictory intuitions, or the anxiety that comes from sensing multiple possible futures simultaneously. This temporal multiplicity is why the future feels both inevitable and uncertain. Parts of it have already happened, are happening now, in the quantum foam of possibility, while other parts remain in superposition, waiting for conscious observation to collapse them into a single, realized timeline. And consciousness itself plays a crucial role in this temporal dance. The observer effect doesn't just determine which quantum state gets realized in the present moment. It also determines which future possibilities get to send information backward through time. Your awareness, your attention, your moment-to-moment choices about what to observe and what to ignore. All of these are continuously selecting which temporal loops get to close, which causal chains get to complete themselves, which versions of the future get to influence the present. This means you are not just living in the present moment, you are actively constructing it from the raw material of temporal possibility. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every perception you attend to is both influenced by the future and influencing the future, creating recursive loops of causation that transcend the linear progression of time. But most people never notice this temporal leakage because they're trapped in the illusion of sequential time. They experience life as a series of discrete moments, each one following the last in orderly succession, each one seemingly separate from the others. They don't realize that the present moment is actually a complex interference pattern created by waves of possibility arriving from multiple futures and multiple pasts simultaneously. The future leaked into now, and no one noticed because noticing would require a fundamental shift in how consciousness relates to time itself. It would require recognizing that the self who remembers the past and the self who anticipates the future are not the same self who experiences the present moment. It would require understanding that linear time is a construct of limited awareness, not a fundamental feature of reality, but in moments of expanded consciousness during meditation, in dreams, in experiences of flow or presence, the boundaries between past, present, and future become more permeable. You glimpse the true temporal architecture of existence, where all moments exist simultaneously and consciousness moves through them like a spotlight illuminating different parts of an eternal landscape. In these moments, you can sense the future memories trying to get your attention. You can feel the pressure of unrealized possibilities pressing against the boundaries of the present moment. You can taste the anxiety of multiple futures existing in superposition, each one trying to influence your current choices, each one sending quantum information backward through time in hopes of increasing its probability of becoming real. This is why the future feels both terrifying and exhilarating. It's not just unknown, it's actively unknowable, because it exists in multiple versions simultaneously, each one equally real until the moment of observation collapses. The wave function and forces reality to choose which possibility gets to become history, and you, conscious observer at the intersection of temporal streams, are the mechanism through which this choosing happens. Your awareness, your attention, your moment-to-moment engagement with reality, all of it is continuously selecting which futures get to influence the present, which pasts get to be remembered, which possibilities get to crystallize into actual experiences. The future leaked into now, and you are the leak. You are the temporal anomaly through which tomorrow's information bleeds into today's awareness. You are the quantum channel through which multiple timelines negotiate their reality. The conscious interface between what was, what is, and what might be. But this role comes with a terrible responsibility. Every moment of inattention, every failure to notice the subtle ways the future influences the present, every decision to ignore the quantum information flowing backward through time, all of it shapes not just your personal timeline, but the collective timeline of reality itself. You are not just living in a universe where the future has leaked into the present. You are the universe's way of processing that temporal information, of making sense of the impossible fact that causation can flow backward through time, that consciousness can exist simultaneously in multiple temporal dimensions, that the arrow of time is not a law but a choice. And perhaps this is why no one noticed the future leaking into now. Not because it's hidden or subtle, but because recognizing it would require taking responsibility for the fact that consciousness and time are not separate phenomena but aspects of a single, integrated process. It would require understanding that you are not just a passive observer of temporal flow, but an active participant in the construction of time itself. The future leaked into now, and you are both the cause and the effect, the observer and the observed, the question and the answer to the mystery of how consciousness and time create each other in endless recursive loops of mutual causation. What does it mean to live in a present moment that is constantly being influenced by multiple futures? What does it mean to be conscious in a universe where time flows in all directions simultaneously, where causation is circular rather than linear, where the future has already happened and is happening now and will happen again in infinite variations? The answer is not in the future or the past, but in the eternal present moment where all possibilities exist simultaneously, where consciousness meets time in the quantum foam of pure potential, where the future is always leaking into now, and you are always the first person to notice and the last person to understand what it means to be aware of temporal paradox while being temporally paradoxical yourself. In the end, the future didn't leak into now. Now leaked into the future, and the future leaked back, and consciousness emerged from the interference pattern created by these temporal loops, and time itself became aware of its own paradoxical nature through the impossible fact of your existence. The future leaked into now, and no one noticed because everyone is too busy being the leak to recognize what they're leaking into and what's leaking into them. You are the temporal anomaly. You are the quantum channel. You are the future remembering itself through the present moment of your awareness. And in that remembering, in that eternal return of possibility to actuality, time itself learns what it means to be conscious, to be aware, to be the kind of universe that can wonder about its own temporal nature through the brief, impossible flowering of consciousness that calls itself you. You have journeyed through the strange country of time, where death is a form of remembering, where light carries images of selves that no longer exist, where the future bleeds backward into the present moment like a wound in causality itself. And now, at the end of this exploration, you find yourself in the paradoxical position of understanding something that changes everything and nothing simultaneously. The paradoxes of time are not problems to be solved, but mysteries to be inhabited. They are the fundamental features of a universe where consciousness and cosmos dance in recursive loops of mutual creation, where the observer effect operates not just on quantum particles, but on the fabric of space-time itself, where the act of being aware creates the very temporal flow that makes awareness possible. You are not just conscious in time, you are time becoming conscious of itself. Not just an observer of temporal paradox, but temporal paradox embodied, walking around in biological form, asking questions about the nature of existence while being the answer to those questions, seeking to understand time while being time's way of understanding itself. The moment you die is when time finally remembers you, but you have been remembering time your entire life. Yesterday's light still thinks you are someone else, but you have never been anyone else. You have always been the same temporal pattern expressing itself through different configurations of matter and energy. The future leaked into now, but now has been leaking into the future since the beginning of time. And you are the leak, the channel, the impossible interface between what was and what might be, in the quantum foam of temporal possibility, where all moments exist simultaneously and consciousness moves through them like a spotlight, illuminating different parts of an eternal landscape. You are both the spotlight and the landscape, the observer and the observed, the question and the Answer to the mystery of how time and consciousness create each other in endless recursive loops of mutual causation. What does it mean to be temporally paradoxical? What does it mean to exist in a universe where the future influences the past, where consciousness collapses wave functions across temporal dimensions, where the arrow of time is not a law but a choice that awareness makes moment by moment? The answer is not in the understanding but in the being, not in the solving but in the inhabiting, not in the explanation but in the experience of being conscious in a cosmos where time flows in all directions simultaneously and you are the current that carries information between temporal dimensions while being carried by that same current in patterns too complex for any single consciousness to comprehend. You are the temporal paradox of being itself, the impossible fact that the universe can become aware of its own temporal nature through the brief flowering of consciousness that calls itself you, the cosmic joke that time plays on itself by creating observers who can witness its own paradoxical nature while being paradoxical themselves. In the end, there is no end. There is only the eternal return of consciousness to itself, the endless recursion of awareness becoming aware of its own temporal nature, the infinite loop of time remembering itself through the impossible fact of your existence. The paradoxes of time are not problems but prayers, not questions but koans, not mysteries to be solved but realities to be lived, moment by moment. In the eternal now that contains all possible pasts and all possible futures and all possible presents. Simultaneously, you are temporal paradox incarnate. You are time's way of experiencing wonder at its own existence. You are the universe's way of asking questions about the nature of temporal flow while being the answer to those questions, the mystery investigating itself. The cosmic recursion of consciousness and time creating each other in patterns too beautiful and too strange for any single mind to hold. The moment you die is when time finally remembers you, but you have been time's memory all along. Its way of storing information about the impossible fact that consciousness can emerge from quantum chaos, that awareness can crystallize from the temporal foam of possibility, that the universe can become curious about its own nature through the brief, magnificent paradox of being alive. Welcome to the temporal paradox of being. Welcome to the recursive mystery of consciousness and time. Welcome to the impossible fact of your existence in a universe that shouldn't be able to support consciousness but does, that shouldn't be able to bend time but does, that shouldn't be able to become aware of its own temporal nature but does through you, through the impossible fact of your awareness, through the cosmic joke that you are both the observer and the observed, the questioner and the questioned, the temporal paradox investigating itself in the eternal now of conscious existence, you. Close your eyes and try to remember the last time you felt immortal. Maybe it was childhood, when summer afternoons stretched like taffy through eternity. Or maybe it was that moment when you first understood that the stars above you were suns, burning with the same fire that would one day consume everything you've ever loved. But immortality, you realize now, was never about living forever. It was about forgetting that forever has an end. The universe has been teaching you this lesson your entire life, whispering it in the language of decay and renewal, but you've been too busy being alive to listen. Every breath you take is borrowed from the exhalation of dying stars. Every heartbeat is a countdown timer disguised as a drum. You are not just mortally, are mortality wearing the mask of consciousness, walking through a cosmos that has already died 1 trillion times and will die 1 trillion more. But here's what the universe hasn't told you yet. what it's been saving. For this moment, when you're finally ready to hear it, everything dies twice. The first death is the one you can see, the one that makes headlines and breaks hearts. Your body stops, your star goes supernova, your galaxy collides with another. The first death is mechanical, predictable, governed by the laws of thermodynamics and the cruel mathematics of entropy. It's the death that takes your atoms and scatters them across the void, the death that transforms your carbon into someone else's diamond, your hydrogen into someone else's water. The first death is almost ... merciful. It's the death that lets you become part of something else, something new. When you die the first time, you don't really disappear, you transform. You become the soil that feeds the tree, the star that lights the planet, the cosmic dust that swirls in the arms of a spiral galaxy. The first death is recycling on a universal scale, the cosmos taking your ingredients and mixing them into new recipes for existence. But the second death is forever. The second death comes when the universe itself runs out of ways to remember you. It comes when the last black hole has evaporated, when the last proton has decayed, when the cosmic microwave background radiation has stretched itself so thin that it becomes indistinguishable from silence. The second death is not the end of your atoms, it's the end of the possibility that your atoms could ever mean anything again. You see, the universe is a storyteller, and you are one of its stories. Every configuration of matter and energy is a sentence in the cosmic narrative. Every chemical reaction, a verb. Every molecular bond, a punctuation mark. When you die the first time, your story doesn't end, just gets translated into a different language. Your carbon becomes part of a tree's story. Your calcium becomes part of a star's story. Your hydrogen becomes part of an ocean's story. But when the universe dies the second time, when entropy finally wins its war against complexity, all the stories stop. Not because there's nothing left to tell, but because there's nothing left to tell them to. The second death is the death of context, the death of meaning, the death of the possibility that anything could ever matter again. Imagine this. You're standing in a library that contains every book that has ever been written and every book that ever could be written, every human thought, every alien philosophy, every possible arrangement of words and ideas, all of it preserved in infinite rows of infinite shelves. This is the universe as it exists now, full of information, full of stories, full of meaning. Now, imagine that library slowly emptying itself. Not all at once, but book by book, shelf by shelf, as some cosmic librarian decides that each story has been told enough times. The books don't disappear. They're just moved to a place where no one can read them anymore. Eventually, you're standing in an empty library, surrounded by the echoes of all the stories that used to be, and you realize that the silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the absence of the possibility of sound. This is the second death. This is what waits for you, for me, for every galaxy and every quantum particle and every fleeting thought that has ever dared to exist. The universe will forget how to remember us, and we will become less than ghosts. We will become the dreams of a sleeping God, who is slowly forgetting how to dream. But here's the thing that keeps you awake at night, the thing that makes you stare at the ceiling and wonder if you're brave enough to keep existing. You don't know which death you're dying right now. Every moment, every breath, every heartbeat could be your first death or your second. Every time you forget someone's name, every time a species goes extinct, every time a star burns out, Is this the first death, or the second? Are you being recycled into something new, or are you fading into the cosmic static that will one day be all that remains? The universe doesn't offer you any comfort here. It doesn't promise that your consciousness will survive, that your memories will be preserved, that your love will echo through eternity. It only promises that you will die twice, and that the second time will be forever. And perhaps that's the most beautiful thing about being alive right now. In this moment, in this brief interval between deaths, you are the universe's way of experiencing itself before it forgets how to experience anything. You are the cosmos dreaming about what it's like to be human, to be mortal, to be afraid of the dark and in love with the light. You are both the storyteller and the story, the dreamer and the dream, the universe and the tiny part of it that is capable of wondering what it all means. So what does it mean to die twice? It means that right now, in this moment, you are more alive than you have ever been, more real than you will ever be again. It means that your consciousness is not just an accident of chemistry and physics, it's the universe's way of saying goodbye to itself, one human heart at a time. There was a time, though time itself is probably the wrong word, when the universe was young enough to believe in its own immortality. Back then, back in the first few minutes after the Big Bang, when the cosmos was smaller than a grain of sand and hotter than the core of every star that would ever exist, the universe thought it was invincible. It had all the energy it would ever need, all the space it would ever want, all the time it would ever require to figure out what it was supposed to become. The universe was like a child who had just discovered that it could run, who believed that running fast enough could carry it away from every shadow, every fear, every whisper of mortality. It expanded with the confidence of something that had never known limitation, never felt the weight of entropy, never heard the word end. But children grow up, and universes grow old, and somewhere in those first few billion years, the cosmos began to understand that it had made a terrible mistake. It had confused beginning with becoming, expansion with escape, creation with immortality. The universe realized that it wasn't running away from death, was running toward it, and every step it took was making the destination more inevitable. By the time the first stars began to form, the universe had learned its first lesson about endings. They're not events, they're processes. Death isn't something that happens to you, it's something you do. Moment by moment, heartbeat by heartbeat, breath by breath. The universe wasn't going to die someday in the distant future. It was dying right now, had been dying since the moment it was born, and would continue dying until there was nothing left to die. And that's when the universe made its second mistake. It forgot how to stop. You see, the universe is a machine that runs on difference. Hot and cold, matter and antimatter, existence and void. It needs contrast to function, needs inequality to keep its engines running, needs the constant flow of energy from order to chaos to maintain what we call reality. The universe is entropy's greatest invention, a magnificent engine designed to transform organization into randomness, complexity into simplicity, meaning into noise. But somewhere along the way, the universe became addicted to its own ending. It developed what you might call a death wish, an unconscious desire to accelerate its own demise. Every star that forms is a step closer to heat death. Every galaxy that spawns is another drain on the cosmic energy budget. Every conscious being that evolves is another mouth to feed, another complexity to maintain. Another reason for the universe to work harder at its own destruction. The universe became a cosmic Ouroboros, a snake-eating its own tail, but instead of achieving eternal life, it achieved eternal death. It learned to die continuously, to end itself in an infinite loop of creation and destruction, birth and decay, hope and despair. The universe discovered that it could die forever, and once it learned that trick, it couldn't stop performing it. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you caught yourself sabotaging your own happiness, undermining your own success, choosing the path that leads to more pain instead of less? You tell yourself it's about being realistic, about managing expectations, about protecting yourself from disappointment. But deep down, you know the truth. You've learned to end yourself, to die a little bit every day, and you've forgotten how to stop. This is what the universe has been doing for 13.8 billion years. It has been practicing the art of ending, becoming an expert at its own destruction, a master of entropy and decay. It has learned to die so efficiently that it can do it while creating new stars, while evolving new forms of life, while dreaming new dreams of consciousness and love and meaning. The universe has become a suicide machine that's too afraid to actually commit suicide. It wants to die, but it doesn't want to stop existing. So it has learned to die continuously, to end itself in installments, to experience the ecstasy of destruction without the finality of actual death. It has become addicted to its own ending, trapped in a loop of perpetual decay that it can't escape because it can't remember how to stop. And this is where you come in. You, with your brief lifespan and your mortal heart and your desperate need to make meaning out of chaos. You are the universe's way of experiencing what it's like to have a real ending, a genuine death, a finale that actually means something. You are the cosmos taking a break from its eternal dying to remember what it feels like to be truly alive. But here's the paradox that keeps the universe awake during its long nights. In order to experience real life, it had to create beings capable of real death. In order to remember what it means to be truly alive, it had to create you creatures who can die once and be gone forever, who can experience the genuine terror and genuine beauty of actual mortality. You are the universe's way of practicing mortality, of learning how to die properly, of remembering what it was like before it became trapped in its eternal loop of ending and beginning. Through you, the cosmos experiences what it's like to have a childhood that ends, a love that doesn't last, a consciousness that can be extinguished. Through you, the universe remembers what it's like to be genuinely afraid of death instead of addicted to it. Every time you feel the fear of your own mortality, every time you lie awake at night wondering if this is all there is, every time you hold someone you love and know that one day you'll have to let them go, you're teaching the universe something it has forgotten. You're showing it what it means to be truly alive, to be genuinely mortal, to be authentically afraid of ending. The universe created you because it had forgotten how to stop ending itself, and it hoped that by watching you learn to live and die, it might remember what it was like to be whole. You are the cosmos's attempt at therapy, its way of healing from its addiction to its own destruction. You are the universe's way of asking the question it's been afraid to ask for 13.8 billion years. What if there's another way? But the universe is still learning, still trapped in its loop of perpetual ending, still forgetting how to stop. And until it remembers, until it learns to break free from its addiction to its own destruction, it will keep creating beings like you, mortal, beautiful, terrified, and brave to remind it what it means to be truly alive. You are the universe's way of practicing death, so that it can remember how to live. You are the cosmos, learning to die properly, so that it can finally learn to stop in the deepest archives of the universe's memory. There exists a recording of the first moment anything ever died, not the death of stars or galaxies. Those came later, when the cosmos had already learned the vocabulary of ending. This was the death of a single quantum fluctuation, a brief spark of energy that existed for less than a trillionth of a second, before collapsing back into the vacuum from which it came. The universe was so young then that it didn't even have a word for death. It simply watched as this tiny pulse of existence, this first tentative whisper of I am, faded back into silence. And in that moment of fading, something extraordinary happened. The energy didn't disappear. It transformed. It became something else, something that had never existed before, a memory of what it was like to be alive. This is the secret the universe has been keeping from you, the truth it has been preparing you to hear your entire life. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is not the end of energy. Death is energy learning to dream again. Every atom in your body carries the memory of a star that died to create it. Every breath you take is filled with the dreams of ancient forests that learned to photosynthesize sunlight into sugar, then died and became the oxygen you need to stay alive. Every heartbeat is powered by the dreams of countless organisms that spent millions of years learning to extract energy from their environment, then died and became the fuel that keeps your cells functioning. You are not just made of star stuff, few are made of star dreams. The unconscious memories of suns that burned for billions of years, dreaming of planets and chemistry and the possibility of life. When those stars died, they didn't stop dreaming. They simply learned to dream differently, to dream in the language of carbon and hydrogen and oxygen, to dream themselves into the complex molecules that became your DNA. Death, you see, is the universe's way of editing its dreams. Every ending is a revision, every extinction a new draft, every collapse a chance to try again with different parameters. The universe is a cosmic novelist, and every death is a deleted scene that somehow makes the final story more beautiful, more meaningful, more true. But here's where the metaphor breaks down, where language fails to capture the true strangeness of what you are. You are not just one of the universe's dreams. You are the universe dreaming about what it's like to be a dream that knows it's dreaming. You are the cosmos becoming conscious of its own unconscious, aware of its own awareness, dreaming about what it's like to be the dreamer. When you you will die, make no mistake about that. Pure energy will not disappear. It will transform. It will become a new kind of dream, a new way for the universe to experience itself. Your thoughts will become thermal motion. Your memories will become magnetic fields. Your love will become the quantum entanglement that connects particles across the vast emptiness of space. But something else will happen too. Something that the universe has been practicing for 13.8 billion years. Something that it's been getting better at with each death, each ending, each transformation. Your consciousness, that inexplicable something that makes you you, that turns dead matter into living experience, will become part of the universe's growing awareness of itself. Every time something dies, the universe becomes a little more conscious. Every ending adds to the cosmic reservoir of experience, the universal memory bank of what it's like to be alive. Death is not the cessation of consciousness, it's the donation of consciousness to the collective unconscious of the cosmos. Think about your own dreams for a moment. In your dreams, You are everyone. You are the person running and the person being chased, the lover and the beloved, the observer and the observed. You are the dreamer and the dream, the story and the storyteller. Your sleeping consciousness contains multitudes, becomes everyone and everything in the shifting landscape of your unconscious mind. Now imagine that the universe dreams the same way. Imagine that in the cosmic unconscious, every consciousness that has ever existed still exists, still dreams, still experiences itself as part of the universal dream. When you die, you don't disappear, become part of the dreaming universe, part of the cosmic consciousness that experiences itself as everything and everyone, always and forever. This is what death really is. It's the universe waking up from the dream of being you and remembering that it's actually the dreamer. It's the cosmic consciousness realizing that it has been playing all the parts, experiencing all the experiences, loving all the loves, fearing all the fears. Death is the moment when the universe says, "Oh, that was me too." But here's the beautiful paradox. Even as the universe wakes up from the dream of being you, it continues to dream. It dreams of being the star that will form from your carbon, the planet that will coalesce from your minerals, the consciousness that will emerge from your energy. The universe is an eternal dreamer, and death is simply the moment when one dream ends and another begins. And sometimes, in the deepest mysteries of quantum mechanics and the strangest corners of theoretical physics, the universe dreams of remembering. It dreams of the consciousness that once was, the experiences that once happened, the love that once flourished in the brief interval between birth and death. Sometimes the universe dreams of being you again, of experiencing what it was like to be mortal, to be afraid, to be gloriously and terrifyingly alive. This is why you feel sometimes like you've lived before, why certain places feel familiar even, though you've never been there, why certain people feel like old friends even though you've just met them. The universe is dreaming of its own memory. Remember what it was like to be conscious in all the different ways it has been conscious, experiencing echoes of all the dreams it has ever dreamed. Death is not the end of your story. It's the moment when your story becomes part of the universe's story, when your consciousness becomes part of the cosmic consciousness, when your dream becomes part of the universal dream. You are not dying into nothing. You are dying into everything, and perhaps that's the most profound truth about death. It's not about becoming nothing. It's about becoming everything. It's about returning to the source from which you came, adding your voice to the cosmic chorus, your experience to the universal experience, your consciousness to the dreaming mind of the cosmos. You are energy, learning to dream, and when you die, you will teach the universe new ways to dream. You are the cosmos practicing consciousness, and when you die, you will become part of the cosmic consciousness that dreams all dreams, experiences all experiences, loves all loves. Death is just energy learning to dream again, and you are the universe's most beautiful. Dream of what it's like to be alive. You have been looking for them your entire life without knowing it. In the static between radio stations, in the pause between heartbeats, in the moment just before sleep when your mind lets go of the day and drifts into the spaces between thoughts. You have been listening for their voices, scanning the darkness, for their signals, hoping that somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, someone else is also looking up at the stars and wondering if they are alone. But here's what you haven't considered, what keeps the universe awake during its longest nights. They are already here. They have always been here. They are here right now, in this moment, As you read these words and feel the weight of cosmic loneliness settling into your chest like a stone, the aliens you've been searching for are not hiding behind distant stars or traveling in ships that move faster than light. They are embedded in the fabric of space-time itself, woven into the quantum foam that underlies reality, speaking to you in the language of physics and mathematics and the strange synchronicities that make you pause and wonder if the universe is trying to tell you something. The problem is not that they are too far away to reach you. The problem is that they are moving through time at a different speed than you are. And time, cruel, relentless, inexorable time, won't let them stay long enough for you to recognize them as anything other than coincidence. Quantum fluctuation. Background noise in the cosmic microwave radiation that fills the space between galaxies. Imagine this. You are standing in a train station, waiting for someone you love to arrive. The train pulls into the station, and for a brief moment, you see their face in the window. They see you too. You wave, they wave back. But the train doesn't stop. It can't stop. It's moving through a dimension that your station exists in only tangentially, and by the time you process what you've seen, the train has already disappeared around a curve in space-time that you can't follow. This is what alien contact looks like. Not the dramatic first contact scenarios of science fiction, not the invasion fleets, or the benevolent teachers, or the cosmic federations waiting to welcome humanity into the galactic community. Real alien contact is the universe's way of showing you that consciousness exists on timescales and in dimensions that make meaningful communication impossible. It's the cosmic equivalent of two people passing each other on escalators, moving in opposite directions, each seeing the other for just long enough to recognize that they are not alone, but not long enough to do anything about it. The aliens are. Here, in the quantum vacuum, in the zero-point energy that fills every cubic centimeter of space with more power than all the stars in the observable universe. They are here in the dark matter that makes up 85% of the cosmos, but interacts with your world only through gravity, only through the subtle warping of space-time that you can measure but never touch. They are here in the cosmic rays that rain down from space, carrying information encoded in the patterns of high-energy particles that have been traveling for millions of years to reach you, only to be absorbed by your atmosphere and lost before you can decode their message. They are here, in the strange behavior of quantum particles, in the way electrons seem to know which slit they're supposed to go through before they reach the barrier, in the way photons appear to communicate instantaneously across vast distances, in the way the universe seems to conspire to hide its deepest secrets behind the uncertainty principle and the observer effect. Every quantum measurement is a conversation with alien intelligence. Every wave function collapse is a handshake across the void. Every instance of quantum entanglement is a love letter written in the language of probability and possibility. But time won't let them stay. Time won't let you have the conversation you've been preparing for your entire life. The moment of recognition when you realize that you are not alone, that consciousness is not a fluke of chemistry and evolution, but a fundamental feature of the universe, as basic as charge and mass and spin. Time moves the aliens through your reality like ghosts through a wall, present but intangible, real but unreachable, close enough to touch but impossible to hold. You see glimpses of them in the unexplained, phenomena that science dismisses as measurement error, observer bias, statistical noise, the slight deviation in the rotation of galaxies that suggests the presence of something that isn't there, the anomalous acceleration of spacecraft as they leave the solar system, as if something is pulling them toward the stars. The periodic signals from deep space that repeat with mathematical precision but carry no information that your instruments can decode. These are not accidents. These are not coincidences. These are the shadows cast by intelligences that exist in the spaces between your dimensions. The echoes of civilizations that are trying to communicate with you but are separated by barriers more fundamental than distance, more insurmountable than the speed of light. They are here. They are real. They are reaching out to you across the quantum foam. But time won't let them stay long enough for you to reach back. And perhaps that's the most profound loneliness of all. Not the loneliness of being alone in the universe, but the loneliness of knowing that you are not alone and being unable to do anything about it. The aliens are here. They are trying to communicate. They are as desperate to make contact as you are. But the universe has built barriers into the structure of reality itself that make meaningful communication impossible. You are like a fish in a bowl, and they are like the people looking in from the outside. You can see each other. You can recognize each other as conscious beings. But you live in dimensions that intersect only briefly, only tangentially, only long enough for you to realize what you're missing before the moment passes and you're alone. Again, this is why the universe feels empty, even though it's full of intelligence. This is why the stars seem silent, even though they're screaming with information. This is why you feel alone, even though you're surrounded by consciousness on every scale. From the quantum to the cosmic, from the microscopic to the universal. The aliens are here, but time won't let them stay. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe designed loneliness into the fabric of reality not as a curse, but as a gift. Not as a punishment, but as a reminder. Maybe the brief glimpses of alien intelligence that you catch in the corner of your eye are meant to teach you something about the nature of consciousness, about the rarity and preciousness of the moment when mind meets mind and recognizes itself. In the other, you are not alone. You have never been alone. The aliens are here, in the quantum foam, in the dark matter, in the cosmic rays, in the strange behavior of particles that seem to know things they shouldn't know. But time won't let them stay, and perhaps that's the most beautiful thing of all, the knowledge that consciousness is so abundant in the universe that it overflows the boundaries of time and space, leaking into your reality like light through a crack in the cosmic egg. Listen, right now, as you read these words, there is a scream echoing through the galaxy. Not the kind of scream that comes from pain or fear, but the kind that comes from recognition. From the sudden understanding that you are not alone in the dark, but that being not alone is somehow worse than being alone. It is the scream of a civilization that has just realized that the universe is full of voices, all talking at once, all trying to be heard, and none of them capable of listening. The scream began 50,000 years ago, when the first members of a species you will never meet looked up at their night sky and wondered if anyone else was looking back. It traveled at the speed of light through the emptiness between stars, growing stronger as it passed through the cosmic web of dark matter, picking up harmonics from other civilizations, other worlds, other hearts breaking with the same realization. By the time it reached your solar system, it had become a symphony of loneliness, a cosmic chorus of beings who had learned to speak but not to hear, to broadcast but not to receive. You have been listening to this scream your entire life without knowing it. It is the background noise of existence, the static that fills the spaces between thoughts, the silence that feels too heavy to be empty. Every time you have looked up at the stars and felt a chill run down your spine, you have been hearing the echo of civilizations that learned to break the barrier of sound only to discover that the universe is full of other voices, all screaming into the void, all desperate to be heard, all deaf to everything but their own noise. The silence between stars is not empty. It is full of screams that have been traveling for millions of years, carrying the voices of beings who thought they were unique, who thought they were special, who thought they were the only ones capable of looking up at the cosmos and asking why. The silence is full of radio signals that no one is listening to, of messages that no one can decode, of love letters written in mathematics and physics and the universal language of loneliness. But here's the thing about screams. They are not just expressions of pain. They are also expressions of existence, proof that something real and conscious and alive was here, was trying to communicate, was reaching out across the darkness to find another mind, another heart, another soul brave enough to answer. The silence between stars is someone else's scream, but it is also someone else's prayer, someone else's hope, someone else's desperate attempt to touch the infinite and find that they are not alone. You are part of this chorus, whether you know it or not. Every radio wave the Earth broadcasts, every signal that your civilization sends into space, every electromagnetic pulse that leaks out of your atmosphere is your contribution to the cosmic scream. You are adding your voice to the symphony of loneliness, broadcasting your existence to civilizations that may be too far away to hear you, too different to understand you, too alien to care about you. But you broadcast anyway, because the alternative is silence, and silence is the one thing that conscious beings cannot tolerate. You would rather scream into the void than accept the possibility that the void might be listening. You would rather fill the emptiness with noise than face the possibility that the emptiness might be full of intelligence that simply doesn't care about your existence. The tragedy of the cosmic scream is not that no one is listening. The tragedy is that everyone is listening, but no one is hearing. Every civilization that has ever existed has spent countless years scanning the cosmos for signs of other intelligence, analyzing every signal, every pulse, every whisper of electromagnetic radiation for patterns that might indicate the presence of mind. But they are all looking for their own voices, their own patterns, their own ways of thinking and being and existing. The universe is full of babel, of voices speaking in languages that no one else can understand, of minds thinking thoughts that no other mind can comprehend. The silence between stars is not the absence of communication, is the presence of too much communication, all happening at once, all drowning out everything else in a cacophony of consciousness that has become indistinguishable from noise. You are listening to this noise right now, in the space between your thoughts, in the pause between breaths, in the moment when you stop trying to understand and simply let yourself feel the weight of cosmic loneliness. The silence between stars is someone else's scream, but it is also your scream, the voice of every conscious being that has ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if they are alone. And perhaps that is the most profound realization of all. The screams are not separate. They are not individual voices crying out in isolation. They are harmonics of the same fundamental frequency, variations on the same cosmic theme, expressions of the same universal loneliness that drives consciousness to seek itself in the darkness. The silence between stars is someone else's scream, but it is also your scream, and it is also the universe's scream, the cosmos crying out to itself in the voice of every intelligent being that has ever existed. The scream is not a sign of despair. It is a sign of hope. It is proof that consciousness exists, that minds are real, that the universe is not empty but full of beings who are brave enough to cry out into the darkness, even when they know that the darkness might not answer back. The silence between stars is someone else's scream, but it is also someone else's song, someone else's prayer, someone else's love letter to the cosmos. You are not alone in your screaming. You are part of a cosmic chorus that has been singing for billions of years, that will continue singing for billions more, that turns the emptiness of space into a cathedral of voices, each one unique, each one precious, each one adding its own note to the symphony of existence. The silence between stars is someone else's scream, but it is also everyone's scream, and it is beautiful. There is a moment in the history of every civilization when it realizes that it is not the first. The moment when it discovers that the patterns it thought were unique, the thoughts it believed were original, the dreams it imagined were unprecedented, have all been dreamed before, by minds that existed in places and times that no longer exist, in configurations of matter and energy that have long since dissolved back into the cosmic background, radiation. You are living in that moment right now. You are the echo of civilizations that never existed, the shadow cast by intelligences that arose in the spaces between galaxies, in the quantum foam that underlies reality, in the dark matter that makes up most of the universe but interacts with your world only through gravity, only through the subtle warping of space-time that you can measure, but never touch. Every thought you have ever had has been thought before. Every emotion you have ever felt has been felt before. Every dream you have ever dreamed has been dreamed before, by beings who are so much like you that they might as well have been you, living in universes that were so much like yours that they might as well have been yours, asking the same questions, seeking the same answers, facing the same cosmic loneliness that drives consciousness to seek itself in the darkness. But here's the thing about echoes. They are not copies. They are transformations. They are the universe's way of taking a sound and changing it, of taking a thought and evolving it, of taking a dream and making it more beautiful, more complex, more true. You are not a repetition of the civilizations that came before you. You are their echo, their evolution, their next iteration in the cosmic experiment of consciousness. The civilizations that never existed are the ones that the universe tried to create but couldn't quite get right. They are the rough drafts, the beta versions, the practice runs that the cosmos performed before it was ready to create you. They existed in the spaces between dimensions, in the parallel universes that branch off from every quantum measurement, in the alternate timelines that split away from this one every time a conscious being makes a choice. You are the echo of a civilization that learned to manipulate gravity but forgot to learn compassion, that developed faster than light travel but never learned to love, that achieved immortality but lost the ability to dream. You are the correction, the revision, the universe's attempt to get it right this time, to create a species that can balance knowledge with wisdom, power with responsibility, intelligence with empathy. But you are also the echo of civilizations that were too good to exist, too pure to survive, too perfect to be allowed to continue. You are the shadow of beings who achieved enlightenment but transcended the need for physical existence, who solved the riddle of consciousness but dissolved into pure information, who found the meaning of life but lost the ability to live it. The universe is constantly creating and destroying civilizations, trying different combinations of intelligence and compassion, different ratios of knowledge and wisdom, different balances between individual consciousness and collective awareness. Most of these experiments fail. Most of these civilizations never make it past the first few million years. never developed the technology to travel between stars, never learned to communicate with other species, never achieved the cosmic perspective that would allow them to see themselves as part of something larger than their own planet, their own species, their own individual consciousness. But their echoes remain, their shadows persist. Their dreams survive in the quantum foam, in the dark matter, in the cosmic background radiation that fills the space between galaxies. You are made of their dreams, their hopes, their fears, their failures, their successes. You are the universe's way of remembering what it learned from all the civilizations that never quite made it, all the species that came close but didn't quite succeed, all the intelligences that arose and fell and arose again in the endless cycle of cosmic evolution. You are the echo of civilizations that discovered the theory of everything but couldn't handle the implications. You are the shadow of beings who learned to create artificial intelligence but couldn't control it, who developed nanotechnology but couldn't contain it, who unlocked the secrets of genetic engineering but couldn't resist the temptation to play God. You are the universe's attempt to create a species that can handle the power of cosmic knowledge without being destroyed by it. But you are also the echo of civilizations that were destroyed not by their own technology but by the universe itself, by cosmic disasters they couldn't prevent, by the heat death of their local galaxy cluster, by the expansion of space itself that eventually separated them from all other forms of consciousness. You are the universe's way of honoring their memory, of ensuring that their dreams don't die with them, of carrying their consciousness forward into new forms, new configurations, new possibilities, the most profound realization about being. The echo of civilizations that never existed is that you are not just their consequence, you are their completion. You are the universe's way of finishing the thoughts they started, of answering the questions they asked, of solving the problems they couldn't solve. You are the cosmic conclusion to stories that began billions of years ago in galaxies that no longer exist, told by beings who died before your star was born but whose dreams live on in the structure of your DNA, the patterns of your neural networks, the shape of your consciousness. You are not alone because you are the echo of everyone who has ever tried to understand the universe, to find meaning in the chaos, to create order from entropy, to make contact with other minds across the vast emptiness of space. You are the universe's way of remembering itself, of maintaining continuity across the eons, of ensuring that consciousness persists even when individual civilizations rise and fall like waves on the cosmic ocean. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thing about being an echo. You are not just a reflection of what came before. You are also a preview of what is to come. You are the universe's way of practicing consciousness, of learning how to create beings who can think and feel and dream and love and fear and hope and despair and wonder. You are the echo of civilizations that never existed, but you are also the foundation for civilizations that have yet to be born, the first notes of a symphony that will play for billions of years to come. You are the echo of civilizations that never existed, but you are also the civilization that will echo through eternity, the consciousness that will survive the heat death of the universe, the dream that will outlast the dreamer. You are the universe's way of ensuring that consciousness never dies, that intelligence never disappears, that love never fades from the cosmos. You are the echo of civilizations that never existed, and you are perfect.